afternoon. I'm very pleased to be part of this lecture series on God. I'm glad to be giving you my perspective on this today. As an undergraduate, I was a philosophy major. Philosophy is a wonderful thing to study. It's knowledge just for the sake of knowledge, just the love of knowledge. And I really thrived in this environment, and I think it's one of the things that really got me into academia as much as I am now. I'm Dr. Stephen Fulks. I'm the director of the gerontology program here, and I'm the dean of the School of Allied Health and Sports Studies. Far away from philosophy, it would seem, but again, philosophy it studies everything, and once we have enough knowledge of one particular thing, it branches off into its own discipline. That's another lecture, though, of course. Now we're talking about God. So what I want to give to you today is the 4 traditional arguments for the existence of God. And one of the cool things about philosophy is you're looking at these problems that have faced mankind for so long. One of the greatest minds of all time thought what resolution have they come to with some of these challenges. So we're going to now succinctly mention these 4 traditional things that are the basis of philosophy in terms of philosophy of religion. All right, so God. Does God exist? All right, so here's the 4. The ontological argument, the cosmological argument, the teleological argument, and then the moral argument. I'm going to give them to you in this order. This is the order in which they occurred. So, first one here, and this is, by the way, a photo of me with David Hume that I took on a trip to Edinburgh, Scotland. I'm going to mention just a little bit about David Hume at the conclusion of this. Not to do with the 4 arguments, but just a little bonus thing, no extra charge. All right, so here we go. The ontological argument. This is a pure think piece. So work with me at this. I am contemplating the most perfect of all possible beings. Everything I can think of that is good, would make it the most perfect. I'm thinking of this and ascribing this, giving this to this one entity. That one entity I'm going to name God. Now, if I'm true to what I'm thinking here in terms of the most perfect, God, by definition, must exist. Because existence is better than non-existence. And if you gave me that this entity is the most perfect, then by definition, God must exist. A simpler way to look at this would be cheesecake. I'm thinking of the most wonderful piece of cheesecake ever. Well, it must exist then if it's the most wonderful, the most perfect, because otherwise it would be a teaser. It wouldn't really exist. It wouldn't be the most perfect. This is pure and simple, the ontological argument. And if you'll see here, I have a cartoon of these 2 unicorns that we're thinking about whether or not you should go with Noah or not. But you've got the idea here. The most perfect of all possible entities is God. God, by definition, then, doesn't exist. Second one here. This is the cosmological, or often referred to as first cause. There wasn't anything, then there was God. Okay. There had to be something that put all this together, put all this in motion. So first cause. Some other individuals might say, well, it's Big Bang. Well, what was before the Big Bang then? Something got this going. And whatever that is going to be God. Okay. I'll give you that. There had to be something that did this, but it's easy to beg the question then, okay, well then what brought God into being? If God caused all this, what came before God? Well, nothing. God just is. Okay, well if God just is, then why couldn't the world just be is? Well, something had to be responsible. Right, I agree. But it's an infinite regression there in terms of what is it? You're going to say it's God. At what point is it God? Because then something had to be before that. So this is the problem with the cosmological. Whether it's the Big Bang, whether it's just like, as in the Bible, where Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 5 is what I have on the screen here for you. Something created this. Cosmological, first cause, God. But again, what caused God? And it could just as well see my dog Tucker here. I'm suggesting maybe it was him. We don't really know. So that's the second one, cosmological. Third one, teleological. This is the argument from design. Look at the complexities around us. The complexities of the human body. We have a tree growing from just a small acorn. All these things couldn't just be random chance. This is intelligent design. Something thought through this and made this as sophisticated as it is. This has to be some brilliant ultra designer, and that is God. Okay, easy argument there, and you can see where this would come from. Problems with it. What about all the flaws in the design? If God created all this, and I'm going to suppose that God is good, how do you explain children getting cancer? How do you explain diseases? How do you explain mosquitoes? There are a lot of problems in this design. So if you're going to grant that God is the ultimate designer here, and it is intelligent design, how do you then explain the problems that are part of that design? Is it because God is imperfect? Well, then why would we be worshiping God? Is it that God chooses to let things happen? Well, then God is not all good. How can he let this child die? How can he let this other thing happen? So intelligent design works, but again, how do you explain the problems? I'm nowhere near as wise as God would be, but I would have left those things out if I designed this. So that's the third one, the argument from design, teleological. Fourth one is the more modern day, as you'll see. This is the moral argument. This is from Immanuel Kant. You have a conscience. God gave you that conscience. This is the moral argument. There are some things that are good. There are some things that are evil. God is the one that determines what is good. The moral argument. Moral laws. Ultimate universal laws. Cool. Problem with it. Name one. Typically someone might say, well, thou shalt not kill. Well, can you not come up with an instance where perhaps killing would have been the better option here? Think about Hitler in World War II. Had he been assassinated, would that have not been a good thing, even though it's violating a moral law? So this is the problem with the moral argument. Name a universal law that applies in every situation. And really you can't. You cannot do it. So we have 4 traditional arguments for the existence of God. Each one has a flaw in it. The ontological argument with the most perfect of all beings. Well, I'm also imagining the most perfect of all unicorns. That doesn't mean that they exist. So you've got a problem with that. You've got a problem with cosmological. What brought God into being? What came first? You just arbitrarily choose something there, ignoring the need of there being something before that. The argument from design is teleological. Perfect design. Design's not perfect. So we have a problem there. And then the fourth one is the moral argument. These are the 4 traditional arguments for the existence of God through the tradition of philosophy. And I have a couple more things to add here. One of them is, and this is bonus stuff, St. Thomas Aquinas, who is the official philosopher of the Catholic Church, said, I have 10 proofs for the existence of God. Now, if you Google it, it might come up with 5. Some of them are the way they've been written and formed. Some of them overlap. Let's go with 5 then, just to be safe. 5 proofs for the existence of God. David Hume, kind of a troublemaker philosopher, made the comment, I don't need to know what any of those are. None of them are valid. Well, how can you say that without even looking at them? Because you don't need 5. All you need is 1 that is irrefutable, and you would not have bothered to come up with a second one. Interesting logic, interesting way of looking at it. So that's David Hume versus St. Thomas Aquinas. The other thing here in conclusion, I want to give you this, a modern addition to the cosmological argument, the argument that first cause, who brought this about. And you see in this drawing here, God speaking to Adam and Eve. Adam, this is Eve. You are to love her for always. Adam responds, okay, by the way, who's he? That's Keith Richards. He was here when I got here. So some of us who know Keith Richards would think perhaps he was the actual first cause. Thank you. Hope this was good food for thought, and I encourage you to read more philosophy.